My ex showed up on my wedding day not sober. The first sign something was wrong was when my flower girl started crying. Little Emma, my soon-to-be stepdaughter, had been practically bouncing with excitement all morning. She'd practiced walking down that rose-petal-scattered aisle at least 50 times during rehearsal yesterday, clutching her basket of white peonies like it contained the crown jewels. But now she was frozen at the back of our garden venue, tears streaming down her cheeks, pointing toward the oak trees that bordered the property. "Mommy Sarah, there's a scary man yelling bad words." My heart dropped into my stomach. Through the trees, I could hear him before I saw him, that voice that still haunted my nightmares sometimes, slurred and aggressive, carrying across the perfectly manicured lawn where 150 of our closest friends and family were seated in white wooden chairs. "Sarah. Sarah. I know you can fucking hear me. Marcus." My maid of honor Jessica immediately stepped in front of me, her emerald dress rustling as she positioned herself like a bodyguard. "No. Absolutely not. Not today. Security is already." "There's no security, Jess." My voice came out steadier than I felt. "We didn't think we needed it." God, how naive that seemed now. 2 years. It had been 2 years since I'd blocked his number, changed my locks, and started sleeping through the night again. 2 years since I'd stopped flinching every time someone raised their voice or moved too quickly. I thought I was safe. I thought he'd moved on. The guests were starting to turn around in their seats, murmuring with confusion. I could see David's parents, conservative, old money types who still said grace before every meal, looking absolutely scandalized as Marcus stumbled into view. He was wearing a wrinkled button-down that might have been white once, jeans with what looked like dried food stains, and he was swaying on his feet like a ship in rough waters. "You ruined everything," he screamed, pointing an unsteady finger in my direction. 2 years I've been trying to get my life back together, and it's all your fault." My wedding planner, a woman who charged $200 an hour specifically because she could handle any crisis, looked like she was about to faint. The string quartet had stopped playing mid-note. Someone's great aunt was clutching her pearls so hard I thought she might break the strand. And there was David, my David, standing at the altar in his perfectly tailored navy suit, looking like he wanted to vault over the chairs and tackle Marcus himself. But he stayed put, trusting me to handle this. That's what I loved about him, he knew I was strong enough to fight my own battles. "Jessica," I said quietly, never taking my eyes off Marcus as he stumbled closer, "get your phone out." "Sarah, what are you?" "Trust me. And open Instagram Live." 2 years ago, I would have hidden. I would have let him drag me away from my own wedding, apologizing to everyone for the scene, making myself smaller and smaller until I disappeared entirely. The old Sarah would have believed him when he said it was my fault, that I'd ruined his life by having the audacity to leave. But I wasn't that woman anymore. Marcus was 20 feet away now, and I could smell the alcohol radiating off him like cologne. His eyes were bloodshot and unfocused, and there was a wild, desperate energy about him that made my skin crawl. "You think you're so much better than me now?" He lurched forward, reaching for my arm. That's when I smiled. "Don't you dare touch her." David's voice cut through the chaos like a blade, and suddenly he was moving down the aisle, his groomsmen flanking him. But I held up my hand, stopping all of them in their tracks. "I've got this," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Then, looking directly at Marcus, I added, "Go ahead, Marcus. Tell everyone how I ruined your life. Tell them exactly what I did to you." He blinked, clearly not expecting this response. Behind me, I could hear Jessica's phone buzzing to life. She was good at following directions, even when she didn't understand them. You left me when I needed you most," he slurred, swaying dangerously close to Mrs. Henderson from the church auxiliary. She clutched her purse like a shield. "I was going through a rough patch, and you just abandoned me." "A rough patch." I repeated his words, letting them hang in the air. "Is that what we're calling it? Tell them about the rough patch, Marcus. Tell them about Kelly." His face went white beneath the flush of alcohol. That was a mistake. Kelly, Amanda, Rachel. I counted off on my fingers, each name like a small victory. Should I keep going? I found the texts, remember? All of them. The crowd was dead silent now. Even the birds seemed to have stopped chirping. I could see David's mother lean forward in her seat, her expression shifting from horror to something that looked almost like pride. "You're drunk," I continued, my voice carrying across the garden. "On a Tuesday afternoon. At 3:47 p.m., to be exact. Which is interesting, because didn't you tell the court you'd stay sober as part of your probation agreement? After the DUI last month?" Jessica shot me a look that said, "How do you know about his probation?" The answer was simple. I'd kept tabs on him through mutual friends, not out of love, but out of survival. When someone has spent 2 years convincing you that you're worthless, you learn to protect yourself by staying informed. Marcus's eyes went wide. You don't know what you're talking about. Officer Martinez seemed pretty clear when he explained the terms to you. Zero tolerance. Wasn't that the phrase he used? I tilted my head, watching him process the implications. "And isn't your new girlfriend Ashley supposed to be at her parents' house right now, thinking you're at an AA meeting?" "How do you?" He stumbled backward, nearly tripping over his own feet. "Small town, Marcus. Your sponsor Dave goes to our gym. Ashley's sister works at the bank with my cousin. Did you really think I wouldn't hear about your miraculous transformation? The reformed man who found Jesus and sobriety and a sweet kindergarten teacher who believes in second chances?" I could see him calculating, trying to figure out how much I actually knew versus how much I was guessing. The truth was, I knew enough. I'd made it my business to know enough. "Sarah," he said, and for just a moment, his voice took on that wheedling, manipulative tone I remembered so well. "Come on, baby. Don't be like this. I came here to make things right. To apologize." "Apologize?" I laughed, and it felt like sunshine breaking through clouds. "You want to apologize? Perfect. Jessica's got about 400 people watching live right now. Apologize away." Marcus's head snapped toward Jessica, finally noticing the phone pointed in his direction. "Turn that fucking thing off." He lunged for her, and that's when everything changed. The moment Marcus lunged for Jessica's phone, 3 things happened simultaneously. First, David's brother Jake, 6'4" and built like the college linebacker he used to be, appeared out of nowhere and caught Marcus by the shoulders, stopping him mid-lunge. Second, Jessica smoothly stepped backward, keeping the phone steady and the live stream rolling. And third, Marcus completely lost what little composure he had left. "Get your fucking hands off me," he screamed, thrashing against Jake's grip. "This is between me and Sarah. This is MY business." "Actually," I said, pulling out my own phone with hands that were surprisingly steady, "it became everyone's business the moment you decided to crash my wedding." "Jessica, are we still live?" 537 viewers and climbing, she confirmed, her voice tight with adrenaline but determined. "Including some very familiar names." Marcus went very still. "What do you mean, familiar names?" I scrolled through the comments appearing on Jessica's screen, reading them aloud like a news anchor. "Well, let's see. Ashley_teaches_kids just joined. That would be your girlfriend, I assume? She's asking why you're not at St. Mary's for your Tuesday meeting. Oh, and look here, Construction Corp HR is watching too. Isn't that where you just started working last month? The job Ashley helped you get through her brother-in-law?" The color drained from Marcus's face so quickly I thought he might actually pass out. "Sarah, please. Turn it off. I'm begging you. Like I begged you to stop drinking and come home to me instead of spending the night with Kelly?" The words came out harder than I'd intended, carrying 2 years of buried rage. "Like I begged you to get help instead of telling me I was crazy, that I was imagining the bottles hidden in the garage? That's not. I never." He was struggling against Jake's hold, but weakly now, like the fight was draining out of him. "Oh." Jessica's voice cut through his stammering. Officer_Martinez_PD just joined the stream. He says, and I quote, "Dispatch is already en route to the location. Sounds like someone's about to have a very interesting conversation about the terms of their probation." Marcus went completely white. No. "Sarah, call them off. Tell them it's a misunderstanding. I haven't been drinking, I took some pain medication for my back, and it made me." "Pain medication?" I interrupted. "What pain medication, Marcus? The kind that smells like vodka? Or are we talking about the little white pills I can see scattered on your front seat from here?" His car was parked crooked near the tree line, driver's door hanging open like he'd stumbled out mid-decision to come ruin my life. Even from 50 feet away, I could see the chaos inside, empty bottles, what looked like pill bottles, and God knew what else. "Those aren't. I can explain those," he said, but his voice had gone thin and desperate. "I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can explain all of it to Officer Martinez. He should be here in about." I paused, hearing the distant sound of sirens, 3 minutes, based on that sound. The wedding guests had formed a semicircle around us now, like we were performing some twisted theater piece. David's grandmother, a tiny woman who'd survived the Depression and 3 husbands, was leaning forward in her wheelchair with the kind of intense focus she usually reserved for her soap operas. "You know what the really sad part is, Marcus?" I stepped closer, close enough to see the panic in his bloodshot eyes. "I actually felt sorry for you. When I heard you were getting your life together, dating someone sweet, working construction, part of me was genuinely happy for you." "I am getting my life together," he whispered. This is just a bad day. A bad day that started at 10 a.m. with a bottle and ended with you screaming at me in front of my future in-laws." I shook my head. "This isn't rock bottom, Marcus. This is you choosing to drag me down with you one more time." The sirens were getting louder. The police cruiser came to a stop behind Marcus's disaster of a car, and Officer Martinez stepped out looking like he'd rather be anywhere else on a Tuesday afternoon. I recognized him from the local coffee shop. He was maybe 40, with kind eyes and the patient demeanor of someone who'd seen every variety of human stupidity. "Mr. Chen," he called out, his voice carrying that particular tone cops use when they're trying to de-escalate. "I'm going to need you to come talk with me for a minute." Marcus's whole body sagged in Jake's grip. "Martinez, this isn't what it looks like. I just came here to apologize to my ex-girlfriend. It's her wedding day, and I wanted to." "Sir, I can smell alcohol from here." Officer Martinez was walking slowly toward us, one hand resting casually on his radio. "And according to the livestream my dispatcher showed me, you've been making quite a scene." "Livestream?" Marcus's head whipped around to stare at Jessica's phone. "How many people are watching this?" Jessica cleared her throat. 843. "Oh, and Ashley stopped commenting. But your supervisor Mike_construction_boss is asking if you're planning to show up for work tomorrow." "My supervisor?" Marcus's voice cracked like a teenager's. "Jesus Christ, Sarah, what have you done?" "What have I done?" I laughed, and it felt like releasing a breath I'd been holding for 2 years. "I'm standing here in my wedding dress while you're drunk and high, screaming at me in front of my family. What exactly did I do besides refuse to let you ruin my life one more time?" Officer Martinez had reached us now, and Jake carefully released Marcus into police custody. Marcus immediately started gesticulating wildly, nearly losing his balance. "She's lying about the drinking," he slurred, apparently unaware that his words were contradicting themselves. "I had maybe 1 beer with lunch. 2 beers. It's not a big deal. Mr. Chen, we've been through this." Martinez's voice held the exhaustion of someone who'd had this exact conversation before. "Your probation terms are 0 tolerance. Not 1 beer. Not 2 beers. 0. But it's not fair." Marcus's voice rose to a whine that made several wedding guests physically cringe. "She gets to move on and be happy, and I'm stuck in some shitty apartment working construction and going to meetings every day. She ruined my life." "How exactly did she ruin your life?" Officer Martinez asked, pulling out a small notebook. "Walk me through that." Marcus blinked, clearly not expecting to have to explain his logic. She left me when I was going through a hard time. She made me feel like I wasn't worth fighting for." "And the cheating?" I interjected. "Did I make you feel like that wasn't worth mentioning?" "That was different," Marcus snapped. "You were always working, always busy with your career. You never had time for me anymore." David's father, a man who'd built a multi-million-dollar business from nothing, actually snorted. "Son," he called out from his front row seat, "that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard." And I've been to city council meetings. A ripple of surprised laughter went through the crowd. Even Officer Martinez looked like he was trying not to smile. Mr. Chen, Martinez continued, I'm going to need you to take a breathalyzer test. And then we're going to search your vehicle. You can't search my car. Marcus protested. Don't you need a warrant or something? Not when you drove here intoxicated and there's probable cause. Martinez gestured toward the open car door. Those pill bottles visible in your front seat? That gives me all the legal justification I need. Marcus's face went gray. Those are prescription. I have anxiety. From Dr. Williams? Martinez asked, consulting his notebook. Because according to your probation file, he's the only doctor authorized to prescribe medication for you. And his office told me yesterday that you missed your last 2 appointments. The trap was closing, and everyone could see it. Those appointments were expensive, Marcus mumbled, swaying slightly as Officer Martinez approached with the breathalyzer. My insurance doesn't cover them anymore since I got fired from the accounting firm. You got fired? I couldn't help myself. Ashley told everyone you left to pursue construction because it was more fulfilling. Marcus shot me a look full of venom. Ashley doesn't know everything. Clearly. Jessica was still recording, and I could see her watching the comment count climb. Guys, we're at over 1,000 viewers now. Ashley_teaches_kids is back, and wow. She's asking a lot of questions in all caps. Officer Martinez held up the breathalyzer. Mr. Chen, I need you to blow into this device until I tell you to stop. This is harassment, Marcus slurred, but he took the device anyway. I know my rights. I watch Law and Order. The absurdity of it hit me then. Here was the man who'd convinced me for 3 years that I was too stupid to balance a checkbook, citing TV legal dramas while stumbling drunk at my wedding. I started laughing, really laughing, for the first time in hours. What's so funny? Marcus demanded, pulling away from the breathalyzer. You, I said simply. All of this. Do you realize there are 150 people here watching you prove every single thing I ever said about you? My future mother-in-law spent 2 years thinking I was being dramatic about my difficult ex, look at her now. I gestured toward David's mother, who was watching Marcus with the kind of fascination usually reserved for nature documentaries about predators. Sir, please complete the breath test, Martinez said firmly. Marcus blew into the device, and we all waited in surreal silence. A string quartet, a man in handcuffs, and my wedding dress, it felt like a fever dream. The breathalyzer beeped. .14, Martinez announced. Mr. Chen, you're nearly twice the legal limit. That's impossible, Marcus protested. I only had a couple drinks with lunch at Applebee's. A couple drinks? Jessica looked up from her phone. Your server Madison_Applebee's SM is in the comments. She says you had 4 double whiskeys and tried to pay with a credit card that got declined twice. Marcus whirled around to stare at the phone. Why is everyone I know watching this? Because it's Tuesday afternoon and you're having a complete breakdown at someone's wedding, David's teenage cousin called out from the back row. This is better than reality TV. Madison also says you left without tipping, Jessica continued reading, and that you knocked over a chair on your way out. Officer Martinez was walking toward Marcus's car now, and I could see him photographing the interior with his phone. Mr. Chen, can you explain why there are approximately 15 empty beer cans in your vehicle? Those are old, Marcus said quickly. From last weekend. Last weekend you were supposed to be at a court-mandated AA retreat in Sacramento, Martinez replied without looking up from his documentation. I had the sign-in sheets. The wedding guests were completely silent now, watching this unfold like a tennis match. Even little Emma had stopped crying and was peeking around her father's legs with wide eyes. And these prescription bottles, Martinez continued, they're made out to 3 different names. Marcus Chen, Jake Chen, and... He squinted at the label. Margaret Chen? Margaret's my mother, Marcus said weakly. Your mother who passed away 8 months ago? Martinez looked up. According to your probation intake form? Marcus opened and closed his mouth like a fish out of water. Jessica, I said quietly, how many people are watching now? 1,500. And climbing fast. Someone shared the link on Twitter. She paused, scrolling through comments. Oh, and Detective Sarah Rodriguez from the Prescription Fraud Division just joined. She says this is very interesting. Marcus actually stumbled backward at that. Marcus's face went from gray to green in about 3 seconds. Detective? What detective? This is just a misunderstanding about some old pills I forgot were in my car. Officer Martinez was photographing each bottle methodically, reading the labels aloud. Oxycodone prescribed to Jake Chen, filled 2 weeks ago. Xanax prescribed to Margaret Chen, somehow filled last month despite the patient being deceased since March. And Adderall prescribed to Marcus Chen from Dr. Peterson's office, which is interesting since Dr. Peterson's medical license was revoked for illegal prescribing 6 months ago. I can explain all of that, Marcus said, his voice getting higher and more desperate. Jake is my cousin, he asked me to pick up his medication. And the other stuff, that's just old bottles I forgot to throw away. Your cousin Jake Chen who's been deployed in Afghanistan for the past 4 months. Martinez didn't even look up from his notes. According to the emergency contact information you provided during booking last month? The silence stretched so long I could hear someone's stomach growling 3 rows back. David caught my eye from the altar and mouthed, are you okay? I nodded, surprised to realize I actually was. Better than okay, actually. I felt powerful. Jessica, read me some of those comments, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. She cleared her throat dramatically. Ashley_teaches_kids says, Marcus told me his cousin Jake died in Iraq last year. Why would he lie about that? And Mike_construction_boss says, this explains why he's been showing up to work sites acting weird. Drug test first thing tomorrow for the whole crew. I never said Jake was dead. Marcus protested, then immediately looked like he regretted opening his mouth. Actually, came a voice from the crowd, you kind of did. Everyone turned to see my neighbor Mrs. Patterson, a 70-year-old retired librarian who could remember every overdue book from 1987 but somehow always ended up at the wrong wedding. Except apparently today she was at the right one. You told me last month at the grocery store that you'd lost your cousin in the war, she continued, adjusting her glasses. Said it was why you were having such a hard time staying sober. I felt so sorry for you I bought your groceries. Marcus stared at her in horror. Mrs. Patterson, what are you doing here? I'm Margaret Chen's neighbor. Was her neighbor, she corrected herself. Before she passed. Lovely woman. And I happen to know she flushed all her medications down the toilet before she died because she was worried about them getting into the wrong hands. Mrs. Patterson's voice carried the authority of someone who'd spent 40 years shushing teenagers. So imagine my surprise seeing her prescription bottles in that young man's car. Officer Martinez looked up from the car with something that might have been admiration. Ma'am, would you be willing to provide a statement about that? Absolutely. Margaret was very specific about it. Made me promise to tell her son if anyone ever tried to use her name for pills after she was gone. Mrs. Patterson fixed Marcus with a stare that could have melted steel. I guess that time has come. Marcus was now visibly shaking. This is insane. You're all insane. Sarah, call them off. Tell them this is harassment. Harassment? I stepped closer, my wedding dress rustling with each step. Marcus, you drove here drunk, with stolen prescription medications, screaming at me in front of my family. What part of this is anyone else's fault? The live stream, he said desperately. You're ruining my life on purpose. In front of thousands of people. Jessica looked up from her phone. Actually, we're at 3,200 viewers now. Someone posted the link on TikTok with the caption, Wedding Crasher Gets Arrested Live. It's going viral. Viral? Marcus's voice cracked completely. No. Sarah, please. I'll leave right now. I'll go to rehab. I'll pay for your wedding if anything got ruined. Just make them turn off the cameras. You'll pay for my wedding? I laughed, and it echoed across the garden. With what money? The construction job you're about to lose? The disability checks you've been fraudulently collecting while working under the table? Marcus went completely still. How do you know about the disability? Because your new girlfriend Ashley talks to her sister Jennifer, who works at the bank where I handle my business accounts. Jennifer processes disability deposits. I smiled sweetly. Small town, remember? Officer Martinez was walking back toward us now, carrying evidence bags. Mr. Chen, I'm placing you under arrest for possession of controlled substances, prescription fraud, violation of probation, and driving under the influence. He began reciting the Miranda rights as he pulled out handcuffs. Wait. Marcus struggled weakly as Martinez turned him around. Sarah, don't let them do this. Remember when we were happy? Remember when you loved me? I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in 2 years. The man who had once convinced me I was lucky he stayed with me despite my flaws. The man who had made me believe I was too sensitive, too demanding, too much work for anyone else to love. He looked pathetic. I remember being afraid of you, I said clearly. I remember walking on eggshells and making excuses for bruises and thinking it was somehow my fault when you chose alcohol over me every single day. The handcuffs clicked into place, and Marcus sagged against Officer Martinez. Bruises? David's voice carried from the altar, sharp with a protective anger I'd never heard from him before. It's okay, I called back to him. That's not who I am anymore. And suddenly, I realized it was true. Marcus was crying now, ugly sobs that shook his whole body as Officer Martinez guided him toward the police cruiser. But even through his tears, he kept looking back at Jessica's phone with this desperate, calculating expression that I recognized all too well. Sarah, he called out, his voice taking on that manipulative tone that used to make me drop everything to comfort him. Please. I know I messed up, but think about what you're doing. Think about my future. Ashley's going to leave me. I'll lose my job. My probation officer will send me to jail. Good, I said simply, and the word felt like freedom. You don't mean that. He was struggling against Martinez's grip now, trying to turn around fully to face me. You're not cruel, Sarah. You're kind and forgiving, Anne. And stupid enough to believe you for 3 years, I interrupted. But not anymore. Jessica looked up from her phone screen, her eyebrows nearly disappearing into her hairline. Holy shit, Sarah. Sorry, holy crap. Detective Rodriguez just commented that she's been building a case against Dr. Peterson's prescription ring for months. She's asking if Marcus would be willing to cooperate in exchange for a plea deal. Marcus's head snapped toward the phone. What kind of plea deal? The kind where you tell them who else was involved in buying fake prescriptions, I said, watching his face carefully. Which means you weren't just using, were you, Marcus? You were selling. The guilty look that flashed across his face confirmed everything. Jesus Christ, David's brother Jake muttered from behind me. Sarah, how did you figure all this out? I didn't figure it out, I admitted, smoothing down my dress. I just paid attention. Marcus always thought I was too stupid to connect dots, but I spent 3 years learning to read every micro-expression, every lie, every excuse. You don't survive with an addict without becoming a detective. Officer Martinez was loading Marcus into the back of the cruiser now, but he rolled down the window. The detective wants to know if you'd be willing to testify about Mr. Chen's activities and associations. Absolutely, I said without hesitation. Sarah, no. Marcus's voice was muffled by the car window but still carried that edge of desperation. If you testify, they'll drag everything out in court. All our private business. The fights, the cheating, everything you wanted to forget. He was trying to threaten me with my own trauma, and 2 years ago it might have worked. Let them, I said, loud enough for the wedding guests to hear. Let everyone know exactly what you put me through. Let Ashley know what she's really signing up for. Let your next girlfriend Google your name and find every single detail. Marcus pressed his face against the window, his expression shifting from manipulation to genuine rage. You vindictive bitch. This isn't justice, this is revenge. No, I said calmly, revenge would have been me calling Detective Rodriguez 6 months ago when I first heard you were dealing pills out of Ashley's apartment. Justice is me doing it now, on livestream, so everyone can see exactly who you really are. His face went white. How could you possibly know about Ashley's apartment? Because Ashley's downstairs neighbor is my yoga instructor, and she's been complaining for weeks about the strange traffic upstairs at all hours. I smiled. Namaste, Marcus. Jessica was frantically scrolling through comments. Ashley just went offline. But Detective Rodriguez wants to know if you have any evidence about the apartment. Tell her to check with the Riverside Apartments Management Company. Ask them about noise complaints and unusual visitor logs for Unit 2B over the past 3 months. Officer Martinez leaned out of his car window. Ma'am, you might want to consider a career in law enforcement. I'll stick with marketing, I called back. But thanks. As the police cruiser pulled away, I realized something remarkable had happened. The scared, broken woman who had fled from Marcus 2 years ago was completely gone. In her place stood someone who could face down her worst nightmare in a wedding dress and win. David appeared at my elbow. So, he said softly, should we get married now, or do you need a minute to process becoming a viral sensation? I looked at Jessica's phone. 4,000 viewers and climbing. Let's get married, I said. I have a feeling this is about to get really interesting. The string quartet started playing again as Officer Martinez's cruiser disappeared down the tree-lined drive, but the energy in the garden had completely shifted. What should have been relief felt more like the eye of a hurricane, that deceptive calm before the real storm hits. Sarah, Jessica whispered, still holding her phone steady, we've got a problem. I was busy straightening my veil and trying to pretend my hands weren't shaking with leftover adrenaline. What kind of problem? The kind where Marcus's arrest is now the number 3 trending topic on Twitter, and Channel 7 News just pulled into your driveway. My stomach dropped. Through the oak trees, I could see a white van with a satellite dish parking behind the caterer's truck. A woman in a red blazer was already climbing out, followed by a man with a professional camera. Channel 7? David's mother stood up from her front row seat, smoothing her navy dress. Patricia, what's Channel 7? The news, Mom, David called from the altar, his voice tight with concern. Sarah, we can ask them to leave. This is private property. But it was too late. The reporter, I recognized her as Linda Chen from the evening broadcast, was already walking across the lawn with that determined stride journalists get when they smell a story. The irony of her sharing Marcus's last name wasn't lost on me. Excuse me, Linda called out, her voice carrying that artificial warmth television personality's perfect. I'm Linda Chen from Channel 7 News. We received multiple tips about a live-streamed arrest at a wedding ceremony. Could we speak with the bride? The wedding guests turned to stare at me like I was some sort of celebrity. David's teenage cousin was taking selfies, and I could see at least 6 other phones recording the news crew's arrival. This is unbelievable, muttered David's father. In my day, people got married without becoming a circus act. Jessica was frantically reading comments on her phone. Sarah, Detective Rodriguez says Channel 7 contacted the police department 20 minutes ago asking about Marcus. Someone leaked that he was connected to a major prescription fraud case. What? I felt the blood drain from my face. That's supposed to be confidential. Tell that to whoever's been feeding information to the media. She scrolled faster. There are rumors online that Marcus was working with someone at the courthouse to get fake prescriptions approved. If that's true, this isn't just about him anymore. Linda Chen was getting closer, her cameraman filming everything. She'd clearly done her homework. I could see her consulting notes that looked suspiciously detailed about my personal life. Miss Sarah Mitchell? Linda called out. We understand your ex-boyfriend Marcus Chen was arrested here today in connection with a prescription fraud ring that may involve multiple government employees. Can you comment on your role in exposing this alleged corruption? My role? I stared at her in disbelief. I didn't expose anything. I just refused to let him ruin my wedding. But even as I said it, I realized how naive that sounded. By live-streaming Marcus's breakdown and arrest, by revealing everything I knew about his illegal activities, I'd inadvertently blown open what might be a much bigger story. According to our sources, Linda continued, you provided specific information to police about prescription fraud activities. Were you working undercover to gather evidence against Mr. Chen? Undercover? David's voice carried a note of incredulous laughter. She's a marketing director, not a secret agent. But Linda wasn't backing down. Miss Mitchell, Channel 7 has obtained records showing that you made multiple inquiries about Marcus Chen's activities over the past 6 months. Phone calls to his employer, his probation officer, even his new girlfriend's workplace. That level of investigation suggests more than casual interest. The accusation hit me like cold water. She was making it sound like I'd been stalking Marcus, building some elaborate case against him instead of just trying to protect myself. Those weren't investigations, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Those were safety precautions. When someone threatens you repeatedly, you learn to stay informed about their behavior. Threatens you? Linda's eyes lit up like she'd struck gold. Are you saying Marcus Chen made specific threats against you? When did these threats occur? Jessica grabbed my arm. Don't answer that. Not on camera. But it was too late. The damage was already spreading across social media in real time. Jessica was reading comments so fast I could practically see smoke coming from her phone. Sarah, this is escalating really quickly. Someone just posted a photo of Marcus's mugshot with your wedding announcement from the newspaper. They're calling it Bride's Revenge gone viral. Revenge? My voice came out higher than I intended. I didn't plan any of this. But Linda Chen was already pivoting, scenting blood in the water. Miss Mitchell, social media users are pointing out some interesting coincidences. Your livestream began exactly when Marcus arrived, suggesting you were prepared for his appearance. You had detailed knowledge of his probation terms, his employment status, and his living situation. How do you explain that level of preparation? The wedding guests were starting to murmur among themselves. I could see doubt creeping across some faces. Had I orchestrated this whole thing? Had I somehow lured Marcus here knowing he'd be intoxicated? I wasn't prepared for anything, I said, but even I could hear how defensive it sounded. Jessica started recording because I asked her to. I wanted evidence in case he tried to hurt me. Evidence for what purpose? Linda pressed. Were you planning to file charges? David stepped down from the altar, his jaw set in that way that meant he was done being patient. This interview is over. You're on private property filming my fiancé without consent on our wedding day. Actually, Linda's cameraman spoke up for the first time. This is a public interest story now. The prescription fraud case involves at least 4 government employees and possibly millions in healthcare fraud. Miss Mitchell's connection to the primary suspect makes her a key witness. Key witness to what? I felt like I was drowning in accusations I didn't understand. I didn't witness anything except my ex-boyfriend showing up drunk. Jessica's phone buzzed with an incoming call. She glanced at the screen and went pale. Sarah, it's Detective Rodriguez. She wants to talk to you. Now. The phone was on speaker before I could stop her. Miss Mitchell? This is Detective Rodriguez with the Prescription Fraud Task Force. I need to ask you some urgent questions about your relationship with Marcus Chen and specifically about any knowledge you might have regarding his association with clerk Rebecca Martinez at the courthouse. Rebecca Martinez? I repeated, my mind racing. I don't know anyone named Rebecca Martinez. She's Officer Martinez's daughter, Detective Rodriguez continued. And according to phone records, Marcus called you 17 times in the past month. We need to know what those conversations were about. The wedding guests were dead silent now, hanging on every word. David's parents looked like they were watching their son marry into a crime family. He didn't call me 17 times, I said firmly. I blocked his number 2 years ago. The calls were made to your work number at Davidson Marketing, Detective Rodriguez corrected. Each call lasting between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. Your receptionist logged them as hang-ups, but our phone analysis shows Marcus was leaving voicemails. My heart stopped. What voicemails? Messages asking you to meet him, saying he had information about corruption in the court system that you'd want to know about. Messages claiming he could prove his probation officer was taking bribes to approve fake community service hours. Jessica was staring at me with wide eyes. Sarah, did you know about any of this? No. I said, but doubt was creeping in. Had Marcus been trying to tell me something important? Had I missed something crucial by avoiding his calls? Linda Chen moved closer with her microphone. Miss Mitchell, it sounds like Marcus Chen was trying to expose corruption, and now he's been arrested just hours after attempting to contact you. How do we know this wasn't a setup to silence a potential whistleblower? The question hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. The blood drained from my face as Detective Rodriguez's words sank in. Detective, I never received any voicemails. Our office policy is to delete hang-up messages after 24 hours. We'll need to examine your phone system's backup servers, she replied, her voice taking on a more official tone. Miss Mitchell, I'm going to need you to come to the station for questioning. Tonight. Tonight? David stepped protectively closer to me. It's our wedding day. Surely this can wait until Monday. Actually, it can't. Detective Rodriguez's voice carried an urgency that made my stomach clench. Rebecca Martinez disappeared from her courthouse position 3 hours ago, right after Marcus's arrest started trending online. She cleaned out her desk and left a resignation letter citing family emergency. Her supervisor says she took approximately 40 case files with her. Linda Chen was practically vibrating with excitement, her cameraman capturing every word. Detective, are you saying this prescription fraud case involves stolen court documents? I can't comment on an ongoing investigation, Rodriguez replied quickly. Miss Mitchell, how soon can you get to the precinct? Jessica was frantically scrolling through her phone. Sarah, the livestream comments are going crazy. Someone claiming to be Rebecca Martinez just posted that Marcus was trying to expose judges who were taking bribes to reduce sentences for drug dealers. What? I grabbed the phone from her hands. Sure enough, a user named Rebecca_Truth had posted a long paragraph. Marcus wasn't dealing drugs, he was gathering evidence. Judge Harrison reduced sentences for dealers who paid $10,000 cash. My dad, Officer Martinez, found out and they threatened his job. Marcus was trying to help expose it, but nobody would listen. Check courthouse case files from January through March. The wedding guests were muttering among themselves now, and I could see David's parents having what looked like a very intense whispered conversation. His mother kept glancing at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Detective, I said, my voice shaking slightly, if Marcus was trying to expose corruption, why was he carrying stolen prescriptions in his car? That's what we need to figure out, Rodriguez replied. Miss Mitchell, those prescription bottles in his vehicle? They weren't random. Every single one was connected to cases that went through Judge Harrison's courtroom. Cases where drug dealers received unusually light sentences. My mind was reeling. So you think Marcus was collecting evidence? Or he was part of the scheme and got greedy, Detective Rodriguez said bluntly. Either way, you're the only person he made repeated contact with. We need to know everything he might have told you, even indirectly. Linda Chen stepped closer, her microphone aimed directly at me. Miss Mitchell, did you know Marcus Chen was potentially working as an informant when you had him arrested on your wedding day? The question felt like a slap. I didn't have him arrested. He showed up drunk and threatening. But you provided police with specific information about his probation violations, Linda pressed. Information that led directly to discovering evidence in what may be a major corruption case. That seems like quite a coincidence. Jessica's phone buzzed with another call. She glanced at the screen and her face went white. It's Ashley. Marcus's girlfriend. Don't answer it, David warned, but Jessica was already swiping to accept. Jessica? Ashley's voice was high and panicked, carrying clearly through the speaker. Is Sarah there? I need to talk to Sarah right now. Marcus called me from jail and told me everything. About the judges, about the money, about why he really came to the wedding. My heart stopped. Why he came to the wedding? He wasn't there to ruin your day, Ashley said, her words tumbling over each other. He was there to warn you. Someone's been monitoring his phone calls for weeks. They knew he was going to try to contact you with evidence. Sarah, he thinks they're going to try to frame you as his accomplice. The garden fell completely silent except for the sound of Linda Chen's cameraman adjusting his equipment to capture every word. Detective Rodriguez's voice cut through the quiet like a blade. Miss Mitchell, I'm sending 2 officers to escort you to the station immediately. Don't discuss this case with anyone else until we can get your official statement. Wait, I said, panic rising in my chest. Frame me for what? I don't know anything about judges or bribes or... Ashley's voice interrupted, shaking with fear. Sarah, Marcus said someone deposited $15,000 into your business account last week. Money that's going to look like payment for helping him gather information on courthouse employees. I felt the world tilt sideways. That's impossible. I would know about any deposits to my business account. But even as I said it, I realized I hadn't checked my business banking in over a week. Wedding planning had consumed every spare moment. Jessica was already pulling up my bank's website on her phone. Sarah, what's your login? The wedding guest pressed closer as she navigated to my account balance. When the number appeared on screen, I heard someone gasp. My business account, which had held $847 last time I checked, now showed a balance of $16,847. And according to the deposit record, the $15,000 had been transferred from an account belonging to Martinez Court Services LLC. Officer Martinez's family business. The number on Jessica's phone screen might as well have been written in neon lights. $16,847. I stared at it until my eyes watered, willing it to change back to the $847 I knew should be there. I didn't authorize that deposit, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I've never heard of Martinez Court Services LLC in my life. Detective Rodriguez's voice crackled through the phone speaker, sharp with urgency. Miss Mitchell, we need you at the station now. Don't touch your bank account, don't transfer any funds, don't. She's not going anywhere without a lawyer, David interrupted, his protective instincts finally overriding his usual calm demeanor. This is clearly a setup. Linda Chen practically lunged forward with her microphone. Miss Mitchell, how do you explain receiving $15,000 from a company owned by the arresting officer's family just days before your ex-boyfriend's arrest? I can't explain it because I didn't know about it. The words came out sharper than I intended, carrying across the garden where 150 wedding guests sat transfixed by what was supposed to be my fairy tale day. Someone is trying to make it look like I'm involved in something I know nothing about. Ashley's voice trembled through the speaker. Sarah, Marcus said they'd been planning this for weeks. Ever since he started asking questions about why drug dealers were getting reduced sentences. They needed someone to pin it on if he got too close to the truth. Who is they? Jessica demanded, still clutching the phone. I don't know. Ashley's panic was palpable. Marcus was paranoid, said he couldn't trust anyone in the court system. He thought coming to your wedding would be safe because it was public, with witnesses. He was going to give you documents proving Judge Harrison was taking bribes. What documents? Detective Rodriguez's voice cut through our conversation like ice. A new voice joined the call, male, authoritative, unfamiliar. This is Agent Patterson with the FBI. Ashley Martinez, we're going to need you to come in immediately. Your apartment is currently being searched under federal warrant. FBI? Ashley's voice cracked completely. Why is the FBI involved? Because this case just expanded beyond local prescription fraud, Agent Patterson replied grimly. We're now looking at federal racketeering charges involving courthouse employees, possibly including judges. Miss Mitchell, 2 federal agents are en route to your location. David's mother chose that exact moment to stand up from her front row seat, her pearl necklace catching the afternoon light. David, perhaps we should postpone the ceremony until this situation is resolved. No. The word came out of me with a force that surprised everyone, including myself. I am not letting whoever set this up win. I am not running from my own wedding. Linda Chen's eyes gleamed. So you admit someone set you up? Of course someone set me up. I turned to face her camera directly. Do you really think I'm stupid enough to accept bribe money into my own business account under my own name if I was actually involved in corruption? Do you think I'd livestream my co-conspirators' arrest to 4,000 people if we were working together? Jessica was nodding frantically. She's right. If Sarah was really involved with Marcus, she never would have exposed him so publicly. Agent Patterson's voice cut through our discussion. Miss Mitchell, we've analyzed the banking records for Martinez Court Services LLC. The account was opened 6 days ago with a cash deposit, and your business information was obtained through a data breach at Davidson Marketing's accounting firm. Someone with access to courthouse records and your personal financial information orchestrated this. A data breach? I felt my legs go weak. When? 3 weeks ago. Your accounting firm, Henderson and Associates, reported unauthorized access to their client database. 47 businesses had their banking information compromised, but you're the only one who received a mysterious deposit. David stepped closer to me, his hand finding mine. Because Sarah was the only one with a connection to Marcus. Exactly, Agent Patterson confirmed. Someone knew Marcus was going to try to contact you. They planted evidence to make it look like you were paying him for information, then waited for the right moment to expose both of you. The pieces were clicking together now, forming a picture that made my stomach turn. They wanted Marcus to come to my wedding. They knew he'd be drinking, knew he'd cause a scene. And they knew you'd fight back, Jessica added, understanding dawning in her voice. They counted on you being strong enough to expose him publicly. Linda Chen was practically bouncing on her toes. So you're saying this entire wedding disruption was orchestrated by corrupt courthouse employees to frame both the bride and her ex-boyfriend? That's exactly what I'm saying, I replied, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. And whoever did this made one crucial mistake. Agent Patterson's voice carried a note of interest. What mistake? I smiled, feeling that familiar surge of clarity I got when a particularly complex marketing campaign finally came together. They assumed I was the same broken woman who ran away from Marcus 2 years ago. They thought I'd panic, try to hide, maybe even flee. Instead, I live-streamed everything to thousands of witnesses and handed them all the evidence they needed to unravel their entire operation. The FBI agent actually chuckled. Miss Mitchell, I think you might be right about that. In the distance, I could see 2 black SUVs turning into our driveway. The federal agents are here, I announced to the wedding guests, most of whom looked like they were watching the season finale of their favorite crime drama. David, I have one question before we continue this circus. He squeezed my hand. Anything. Do you still want to marry me even though our wedding day has turned into a federal investigation? His answer came without hesitation. Sarah, I've watched you take down a corruption ring in a wedding dress. I'm pretty sure you can handle anything life throws at us. I turned to face the approaching FBI agents, my veil flowing behind me like a cape. Agent Patterson, I called out, I'll answer all your questions and provide any evidence you need. But first, I'm getting married. The FBI agents were surprisingly accommodating about the whole getting married during a federal investigation situation. Agent Patterson turned out to be a soft-spoken woman in her 50s who reminded me of my high school English teacher, and Agent Kim looked like he'd rather be anywhere else but at a wedding-turned-crime scene. "We can give you 30 minutes, Agent Patterson said, consulting her watch. "But we need to establish a secure perimeter first. Too many variables with the media presence and livestream." Linda Chen from Channel 7 was not thrilled about being asked to move her news van to the street, but the federal agents weren't taking requests. As I watched her pack up reluctantly, Jessica grabbed my arm. "Sarah, we're at 8,000 viewers now," she whispered, holding up her phone. "And someone just joined the stream who might be important." I looked at the screen. A user named Judge_Harrison_official had entered the chat and was typing rapidly. "That can't be the actual Judge Harrison," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I felt a chill. The comment appeared, "Sarah Mitchell, you have no idea what you've started. Some doors should stay closed." Agent Patterson was beside us in seconds. "Show me that phone." Jessica handed it over, and I watched the agent's expression darken as she read. "Agent Kim, we need tech support on this livestream immediately. Someone's making threats in real time." "Threats?" David's voice carried across the garden. He'd been trying to keep our guests calm, but now he was striding toward us with barely contained anger. "Who's threatening my fiancé?" Before anyone could answer, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but Agent Patterson motioned for me to answer on speaker. "Hello? Miss Mitchell, this is Judge Harrison." The voice was smooth, cultured, with just a hint of steel underneath. "I think we need to talk." The garden went completely silent. Even the string quartet stopped tuning their instruments. "I have nothing to say to you," I replied, surprised by how steady I sounded. Judge Harrison chuckled, and the sound made my skin crawl. "Oh, but you do. You see, that money in your account? It's just the beginning. We have documentation of 12 other payments made to your business over the past 18 months. Payments for services rendered in connection with case research and witness coordination." "That's impossible," I said, but Agent Patterson was already typing furiously on her phone. "Is it?" Judge Harrison's voice carried a note of amusement. "Check your business tax returns, Miss Mitchell. Your accountant at Henderson and Associates filed some very interesting deductions on your behalf. Deductions for consulting services provided to Martinez Court Services LLC dating back to January of last year." My stomach dropped. "I never provided consulting services to anyone named Martinez." "Tell that to the IRS," Judge Harrison replied smoothly. "Funny thing about tax fraud, it's a federal crime with mandatory minimum sentencing. Even for pretty young marketers who claim they didn't know what their accountants were filing." Agent Kim was on his radio, speaking in rapid, clipped sentences. I caught fragments: tax records, Henderson and Associates, immediate warrant. "What do you want?" I asked, though I was pretty sure I already knew. "Marcus had some documents that belonged to me," Judge Harrison said. "Documents he stole from Rebecca Martinez before she wisely decided to take a vacation. I need those documents back." "I don't have any documents." "But you know where they are," Judge Harrison pressed. "Marcus was quite clever, actually. He knew something might happen to him, so he hid them somewhere safe. Somewhere only you would think to look." David was staring at me with a mixture of concern and confusion. "Sarah, what is he talking about?" "I honestly don't know," I said, but my mind was racing. Where would Marcus hide something he wanted me to find? We'd lived together for 3 years. I knew all his hiding spots, his paranoid little stashes, his... Oh God. The storage unit. Marcus had rented a storage unit during our last month together, claiming he needed space for his mother's belongings after she died. I'd helped him carry boxes there, signed as a secondary contact because his credit was terrible. After we broke up, I'd completely forgotten about it. Until the rental company started calling my office 6 months ago about overdue payments. I'd been so busy with wedding planning that I'd just paid the fees to stop the calls, assuming Marcus would eventually deal with it himself. The payments had been automatically deducted from my business account every month since then. Judge Harrison must have seen the recognition in my face, even through the phone. "Ah, there it is. You remember now, don't you?" Agent Patterson was watching me intently. "Miss Mitchell, what did you just realize?" "There's a storage unit," I said slowly. "Unit 47 at Riverside Storage. I've been paying the rental fees for months because they kept calling my office." "And what's in the storage unit?" Agent Kim asked. "I thought it was just his mother's belongings," I replied, but doubt was creeping in. "But if Marcus was collecting evidence..." Judge Harrison's voice cut through my thoughts like a blade. "You have 2 hours to retrieve those documents and destroy them. If you don't, those tax fraud charges will be the least of your problems. Rebecca Martinez isn't on vacation, Miss Mitchell. She's in protective custody because she was smart enough to cooperate with people who don't leave loose ends." The line went dead. Agent Patterson was already barking orders into her radio. "I need a tactical team at Riverside Storage immediately. And get me a warrant for Unit 47. I looked around at the wedding guests, still sitting in their white chairs like they were watching the world's most surreal theater performance. My future mother-in-law was fanning herself with her wedding program, and David's teenage cousin was live-streaming the FBI agents on TikTok. "Agent Patterson," I said, straightening my veil, "how long do you think it'll take to secure that storage unit?" "Hour and a half, maybe 2 hours," she replied, then caught my expression. "Why?" I smiled, feeling that familiar surge of determination that had carried me through the last 3 hours of chaos. "Because I'm getting married first." The FBI tactical team arrived with enough firepower to invade a small country, which seemed excessive for a storage unit that probably contained my dead ex-boyfriend's mother's china collection and whatever evidence had turned my wedding into a federal case. "Unit 47 is secured," Agent Kim announced, jogging back from the convoy of black vehicles that had transformed our romantic garden venue into something resembling a military operation. "But we've got a problem." I was standing at the altar now, finally, with David's hands in mine and Reverend Matthews looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past 4 hours. Our guests had gone from horrified to fascinated to what I could only describe as bloodthirsty. David's great-aunt Millicent was taking notes in her church bulletin like she was planning to write a book about this. "What kind of problem?" Agent Patterson asked, approaching us with that grim expression federal agents must practice in the mirror. "The unit was broken into approximately 6 hours ago. Professional job, no damage to the lock, but someone with the access code cleaned it out completely. My heart sank. 6 hours ago? That was before Marcus even showed up here. Which means someone knew exactly when and where to hit it, David said, his jaw clenching. This whole thing really was orchestrated. Jessica, still dutifully live-streaming our federal investigation wedding, looked up from her phone with wide eyes. Guys, we just hit 15,000 viewers. And Judge Harrison is back in the comments. Agent Patterson was beside her instantly. What's he saying? He's asking Sarah if she enjoyed her wedding gift, Jessica read aloud. And he says the storage unit was just the appetizer. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Agent Patterson nodded for me to open it. The message contained a single photo, me, standing in the storage unit 6 months ago, helping Marcus carry boxes. Someone had been watching us, documenting everything, even then. How is that possible? I whispered. That was before any of this started. Agent Kim was studying the photo on my phone. Miss Mitchell, look at the timestamp. This was taken on March 15th. What else happened around that date? I thought back, trying to remember. March had been a blur of wedding planning and work deadlines. I honestly don't know. Why? Because March 15th was the day Judge Harrison dismissed charges against Vincent Carrera, a major drug dealer who should have gotten 15 years minimum. Case was thrown out on a technicality about evidence handling. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Someone knew Marcus was gathering evidence even then. They've been planning this for months. Not someone, Agent Patterson corrected grimly. Multiple someones. This level of coordination involves law enforcement, courthouse personnel, possibly federal employees. We're looking at a conspiracy that goes way beyond one corrupt judge. David squeezed my hands tighter. Sarah, maybe we should postpone the ceremony after all. This is getting dangerous. No. The word came out with more force than I'd intended. I am not letting these people steal one more thing from me. They took 2 years of my peace of mind. They're trying to take my reputation, my business, possibly my freedom. But they are not taking my wedding day. Reverend Matthews cleared his throat. Perhaps we could expedite the ceremony? I'm familiar with the abbreviated version. How abbreviated? I asked. Do you, Sarah, take David to be your husband? I do. Do you, David, take Sarah to be your wife? I do. By the power vested in me by the state of California and witnessed by approximately 15,000 people via livestream, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Kiss her quick before the FBI needs to relocate you both. David's kiss tasted like freedom and victory and the promise that whatever came next, we'd face it together. The applause from our guests was interrupted by Agent Patterson's radio crackling to life. We've got movement at the courthouse. Judge Harrison just left through the back exit with 2 suitcases. Should we pursue? I pulled away from David's kiss and grinned. Agent Patterson, I think our honeymoon is going to have to wait. The tactical team found Judge Harrison's car abandoned at the marina 20 minutes later, but the man himself had vanished like smoke. What they did find in his hastily vacated courthouse chambers made Agent Patterson's face go white as she scrolled through the evidence photos on her tablet. Sarah, she said, approaching David and me as we stood surrounded by our bewildered wedding guests, we need to talk. Privately. Jessica was still live streaming, now to over 20,000 viewers, and I could see her reading comments with increasing alarm. Should I turn this off? No, Agent Patterson said firmly. Actually, keep it running. We may need those witnesses. She led us toward the oak trees, away from the crowd but still within camera range. David kept my hand firmly in his, and I realized I was still wearing my wedding dress. Somehow that felt important, like armor made of silk and hope. Judge Harrison left behind financial records going back 3 years, Agent Patterson began. Sarah, your business account wasn't randomly targeted. You've been receiving payments from shell companies connected to his operation since 2021. Small amounts, under the reporting threshold, routed through your accounting firm. My stomach dropped. That's impossible. I would have noticed irregular deposits. Not deposits, she corrected. Overpayments on your business invoices, then refunds processed back to accounts you didn't control. Henderson and Associates was skimming the excess and funneling it through Martinez Court Services LLC. On paper, it looks like you were laundering money for 18 months. David's grip on my hand tightened. How much money are we talking about? $127,000, Agent Patterson said quietly. All documented, all traceable to your business tax ID number. The number hit me like a physical blow. I'd been building my marketing firm for 5 years, scraping together every client, every project. My biggest single contract had been $15,000. The idea that I'd somehow processed $127,000 in illegal payments without knowing it was insane. But I can prove I didn't know, I said desperately. My actual business records, my real client contracts. Were all digitally altered 3 weeks ago during the Henderson and Associates data breach, Agent Kim interrupted, joining our conversation. Someone with sophisticated technical knowledge replaced your legitimate files with fabricated ones showing consulting payments to Martinez Court Services LLC. Jessica's voice carried from behind us, oh shit. Sorry, oh crap. Sarah, Marcus is calling my phone. Agent Patterson motioned for her to put it on speaker. We all gathered around as Jessica accepted the call. Sarah? Marcus's voice was slurred but urgent. Jesus Christ, they let me make one phone call and I had to find you. Listen to me carefully, Rebecca Martinez isn't in protective custody. What do you mean? I asked. I mean she's been dead for 6 hours. They killed her right after my arrest started trending. Made it look like an overdose, but Rebecca didn't use drugs. She was straight edge, wouldn't even take aspirin. Agent Patterson's radio erupted with chatter. I caught fragments, body found, apparent overdose, no signs of struggle. Marcus, Agent Kim said, where are you calling from? County lockup, but they're transferring me to federal holding in 20 minutes. Sarah, the storage unit was a decoy. The real evidence is somewhere else. Where? I demanded. Remember your birthday last year? When I gave you that stupid jewelry box you said was too fancy for your apartment? I did remember. An ornate wooden jewelry box with a hidden compartment, carved roses on the lid. I thought it was a weird gift. Marcus never had money for anything that nice, and it wasn't really my style. I'd shoved it in my closet after we broke up. The jewelry box, I said. It's in my bedroom closet. Check the hidden compartment, Marcus said urgently. Everything's there, recordings, financial documents, photos of Judge Harrison meeting with drug dealers. Rebecca copied everything before she tried to run. Agent Patterson was already motioning to her team. We need to get to Sarah's apartment immediately. But Jessica was staring at her phone with growing horror. Guys? Someone calling themselves cleanup crew just joined the live stream. They're asking for Sarah's home address. My blood turned to ice. How many people are watching this? 24,000, Jessica whispered. Sarah, this call is being broadcast live. Everyone just heard about the jewelry box. The realization hit all of us at the same time. Marcus's confession had just told thousands of viewers, including whoever killed Rebecca Martinez, exactly where to find the evidence that could bring down their entire operation. Agent Patterson was already shouting orders. I need units at Sarah's apartment complex now. Full perimeter, treated as an active crime scene. David pulled me closer. How long would it take them to get there? My apartment is 15 minutes from here, I said, then looked at Agent Patterson. How fast can your people move? Her radio crackled, multiple vehicles converging on 1247 Maple Street. We've got movement in the apartment complex parking lot. That's my building, I whispered. Sarah, Marcus's voice came through Jessica's phone, weaker now, there's something else. Judge Harrison didn't run because of the investigation. He ran because his partners think he's become a liability. They're cleaning house, eliminating everyone who knows too much. Including me? I asked, though I already knew the answer. You were supposed to die in a car accident next week, Marcus said quietly. After you'd been thoroughly discredited, but before you could mount a real defense. But you fought back too hard, too publicly. Now they have to improvise. The line went dead. Agent Patterson's radio erupted with urgent voices, shots fired at 1247 Maple Street. Officers requesting immediate backup. The gunshots at my apartment complex echoed through Agent Patterson's radio like thunder, but instead of fear, I felt something unexpected, relief. After hours of being manipulated, framed, and threatened, the people trying to destroy me had finally made their move in broad daylight, in front of 24,000 livestream witnesses and a full FBI tactical team. Sarah, David said, his voice tight with concern as we listened to the radio chatter, maybe we should. No, I interrupted, straightening my shoulders and feeling the weight of my wedding dress like armor. We're going there. I want to watch them get caught. Agent Patterson looked like she wanted to argue, but her radio crackled again, suspects in custody. Building secured. We've got the jewelry box. Jessica's phone buzzed with a notification. Oh my god, Sarah. Cleanup crew's account just got suspended, but not before Twitter identified the IP address. It was registered to Harrison Property Management LLC, Judge Harrison's real estate company. Which means we have them, Agent Kim said with satisfaction. Digital fingerprints connecting the judge directly to threatening a federal witness. The drive to my apartment took 12 minutes, sirens blazing, with me still in my wedding dress and David in his tuxedo like we were the world's most overdressed crime-fighting duo. The parking lot looked like a movie set, FBI vehicles, local police cars, and news vans that had beaten us there despite our police escort. Agent Patterson led us through the perimeter to where two men in tactical gear stood with their hands zip-tied behind their backs. One was a courthouse security guard I vaguely recognized, the other was a stranger in an expensive suit who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Miss Mitchell, Agent Patterson said, meet Thomas Brennan, Judge Harrison's private attorney, and Carl Rodriguez, Officer Martinez's nephew and a courthouse security supervisor. They were in your apartment for approximately 4 minutes before our team arrived. 4 minutes, I repeated, looking at the ornate wooden jewelry box sitting on the evidence table. Were they planning to steal the evidence or destroy it? Actually, Agent Kim said, approaching with a tablet full of photos, they were planting additional evidence. We caught them trying to hide cocaine and unmarked cash in your bedroom. Apparently the corruption charges weren't enough, they wanted to add drug trafficking to your supposed crimes. The absurdity of it hit me all at once. These people had spent months building an elaborate frame job, and in the end, they'd been undone by their own greed and my refusal to stay quiet. Jessica was still live streaming, now to over 30,000 viewers. Sarah, you need to see these comments. People are posting photos of Judge Harrison at the airport. Someone spotted him trying to board a private jet to Mexico. Agent Patterson's radio crackled one final time. Harrison in custody at Santa Barbara Airport. Attempted to flee in a Learjet registered to Martinez Court Services LLC. He's asking for his lawyer. I looked around at the chaos, the FBI agents, the evidence boxes, the news cameras, my wedding dress now slightly torn from climbing into tactical vehicles. 6 hours ago, I'd been terrified that Marcus would ruin my perfect day. Now I was standing in a parking lot watching a corruption ring collapse in real time. David, I said, taking his hand as the last of the suspects were loaded into federal vehicles, I think this might actually be the perfect wedding day after all. He kissed me right there in the parking lot, while 30,000 people watched online and Agent Patterson rolled her eyes at the paperwork she'd have to file about the bride and groom who solved a federal case in wedding attire. Sometimes the best revenge really is living well, and live streaming everything,